This is TWiT.
Which brings us to Amazon Health. Amazon and I love your explanation.
I'm very like,
Sam's going, hey, that.
Just two words. I don't put those two words together very often.
Amazon and Health. The joint press release was much more limited than I might imagine the plan is.
Right.
But they've partnered with Berkshire Hathaway and a big financial company, J.P. Morgan Chase.
Also associated with health.
Really?
No.
Associated with lots of money. They say address
rich people's wallets.
Address the health care for their employees. But, one has to assume that what Amazon's up to is testing something on their employees that eventually they'd like to scale up and do. It'd be interesting to see if the crisis in American healthcare is solved not by, say, a single-payer system from government or some sort of health plan like Medicare, but in fact by private corporations.
It already
using efficiencies.
Most of the
brought to you by
innovation
technology
comes that way. Ben Thompson.
System.
Everybody's talking about Ben Thompson's analysis, which is really, really brilliant. But he points out that Kaiser Permanente started out as a trucking company or something like that.
It was an aluminum company, and they created for their employees it's effectively an HMO that I use and I still use, and it works very well. So, I mentioned that as well when we first talked about Amazon Health. But Ben's analysis is, as always, very astute. We try to get him on the show, but it's hard for him because he's in Taiwan, and it's early morning. He drives his kids to school during the time we do the show. So we'll get him. But what he says is, don't assume that they want to do a single-payer health system. But what they might be, his analysis of Amazon is that their goal in everything is to take a fraction of all economic activity. And what if they want to take a skim off of all economic activity, given that healthcare is 17.9% of GDP?
Yeah, and
this would be a good thing to skim. But is it Amazon's going to be a health insurance company? Is it they're going to be providing health, or more likely, according to him, they're going to build out infrastructure for healthcare suppliers
and interfaces, and they're going to drive costs down. I'm kind of rooting for Amazon, surprisingly, in this, because the healthcare system in the United States is so ridiculous now. We pay so much more, and the outcomes are so much worse than a lot of other places. And as he astutely points out, everybody's moving in a different direction in terms of incentives. The medical industrial complex, meaning the pharmaceutical companies and the healthcare providers, want you to have maximal health problems so they can give you drugs and have hospitalization. The insurance companies want to reduce costs, and the consumers who have insurance don't care. So it's like everybody's got a different. If you can get everybody rowing in the same direction, you could bring down costs and boost quality.
Sure, and administration costs would go down. We spend a huge amount of our health budget in the United States, not on healthcare, but on administration.
Get in the Amazon ambulance; they'll have you delivered to the hospital and overnight. It's like
but if you got to pay for Prime if you want that immediately within the next hour.
So he says Amazon, he's not going to create an insurance company to compete with other insurance companies or the other pieces of infrastructure. Amazon will make it possible and desirable for this is really interesting, individual healthcare providers to come onto their platform directly, doctors, hospitals, pharmacies. In other words, it's a platform doing exactly what Amazon's done in every other respect. When you buy stuff from Amazon, you're often buying from a company that's not related to Amazon.
I look forward to the rating system on that. How many your doctor gets 5 stars or gets review bombed or whatever.
Berkshire Hathaway is a big health reinsurer. They insure insurance companies, which is interesting. And, of course, you need financing, you need capital, and that's where J.P. Morgan Chase comes in. Ben says, needless to say, what I sketched out is extremely ambitious. It's easy to let one's mind run wild when it comes to a company without a name, management team, or a location. This is very early days. He even points out the press release was very modest in its ambitions. And we've seen technology solutions to the health crisis, Google Health and Microsoft Health, which had not done much. But I think if you're Jeff Bezos, you're absolutely thinking, how can I get that skim off that big health bill? And I think Jeff's fairly progressive and maybe make the world a better place.
Maybe. I certainly think that Jeff Bezos is currently the most visionary CEO in tech today, and he's visionary in a smart business sense. not in terms of a great product sense, but in terms of like, how can I make myself the richest person in history sense? And I really don't think they do things small, especially something like healthcare, which is so enormous, so much money to be made. I think, Ben, it's right to sort of say, give a caveat that there's no location, et cetera. But Amazon goes big on this stuff. And long-term, they think long-term. That's why they succeed, because they think long-term. They make really smart moves. They tweak it. They try lots of things. So I really think this is this is the most significant news in the world of healthcare.
I think so.
In
potentially
in several
anyway.
years. Yeah. I mean, this is big news.
I'm like, I feel like kind of icky about this. And I think the reason why is because I think about a company like Amazon, who has traditionally not treated its workers super well. Did I lose everybody?
Nope, we're still here.
No, we're listening.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
We're
sorry,
fascinated.
like,
We're wrapped.
My sound just got cut really hard. It was really weird.
Can hear a pin drop.
But like Amazon is a company that traditionally has not treated its employees very well, and there are rumors that we see all the time, every year, at least every quarter or 6 months, we see these stories come out of, even in executive levels of management and things like that. There's people saying that the turnover is very high. There's so much churn happening at Amazon. And so it's one of those things where I feel like obviously no one is going to be a disruptor in the way of our government here in the United States. Like, I don't see that happening for a long time. So some disruption is great. Like, and I think in that way, I'm glad Amazon is, stepping forward and saying, like, we want to disrupt the space because it does need disruption and it needs to be pulled forward into the 21st century. But on that same note, there's just so many ways that if you think about like the worst case scenario, it just seems so Orwellian.
Can I piggyback on this?
Yes, please.
Yeah, because we're already seeing at Whole Foods, they're struggling to keep produce on the shelves because of the changing of the inventory system that's coming with Amazon.
That inventory system was switched before Amazon bought it. That was like.
I know. I'm segueing that into worrying about whether they can keep the kidneys in stock, but also Amazon is notorious.
I'm sorry, sir.
Seattle.
We're all out of kidneys. Would you like a new heart?
Sorry.
Notorious around Seattle for a lack of charitable works. It is not a company that gives a lot to Seattle. They took over a space called Mary's Place just as a reaction when local press said, why don't you you're not philanthropic around Seattle the way other like Microsoft and companies like that are. That is they're very much in that Ayn Randian libertarian state. And that can maybe shake up healthcare, but I do also worry in terms of their general humanitarian track record is not as awesome as other tech companies that make sure to put that piece forward. So when you're saying we're going to really be there for the most important business of all of human life, yeah, I'm anxious as well.